Today's story will tell you about how Brittain Noel built her videography career, the trip recap from the Summit Scholarship Adventure Lens Grant trip in 2025, and tips for aspiring filmmakers and creatives. This is See Her Outside, Stories from Women Who Adventure. I'm your host, Angie Lake. Before we get into today's story, get super excited because applications for 2026 Summit Scholarships open up on December 15th, 2025. The Summit Scholarship Program provides mountaineering and adventure stipends to help break down barriers to the big mountain realm for women and girls from all walks of life. Do yourself a favor and go to summitscholarship.org to get a preview of the 2026 scholarships. There's an Adventure Lens grant for emerging videographers and photographers, like you'll hear about in today's episode. There's a new Matterhorn adventure in partnership with LOA. There's a Mount Baker climb for teens. We've talked about that one in previous episodes. By making life-changing mountaineering and backcountry opportunities more accessible, we're working to create a world that celebrates women's voices, stories, and adventures in the big mountain world and beyond. To apply when applications open in just a few days from this airing of this episode, go to the show notes and sign up to get notified in your email. Today's conversation is with a Summit Scholarship recipient from 2025, specifically the Adventure Lens Grant. Brittain Noel is a storyteller whose practice began in childhood and followed her through foster care to Tibet, across Asia, and into the mountains she climbs today. Navigating an upbringing by adults with mental illness, Britt found nature and climbing as a way to heal. Her work blends documentary texture with a deep interest in how people find belonging, courage, and humor in the moments that feel hardest. Here's my conversation with Britt. When do you remember holding up a camera and feeling something that it was an important thing for you to hold?
I have a moment, kind of like an anecdote from when I was camping, and that's probably the first time I remember thinking of a bigger picture with a camera. My dad and I were in the north coast of California, and it was a film camera, and I just remember I was shooting eagles or something that were flying over the field. They were probably terrible photos. I don't know if I've even ever seen them. But I just remember being I'm going to be a Nat Geo photographer one day, looking at him and telling him that, and that was the extent of it. But that's when it started to be something.
Oh, that's so funny because when I remember in college thinking, none of these jobs that they're presenting me with seem like a viable option for my life. I'll just become, I think I said I would be a photojournalist for Nat Geo, but I literally have zero camera experience. I don't know where I got that from, but I wanted to go around and, spread the good word about environmental and social issues. And it's funny because although I never got anywhere close to Nat Geo, I am finding those elements that I was seeking, a decade and a half ago. I'm finding those
Nat
in the
Geo
work.
Has shaped us all.
It totally has, yeah.
Truly. Whether we get there or not.
Yep. So how old were you then with your dad, and how did your video and photo journey change since then?
I was probably around 8 or 9 when that happened. And then I wish I had a better, more meaningful story about kind of how the whole thing went down. But the truth is I really just, I had always done it. I got my first digital camera when I was 8 too. I got my first video camera when I was maybe 10 or 11, and me and my cousins have all these skits that we filmed when we were little, and I was always the director, just yelling at people and telling them what to do. And I just always loved it. I mean, there was definitely a handful of years, a decade, where I did not touch a camera, and I was just very preoccupied with kind of adolescent stuff. But it kind of just always felt like the only thing I was going to do,
What was your first professional experience? How did you break in?
I was living in LA, and I had really randomly come back into production, but not on the camera side. I was a producer for Comedy Central at the time. And then I kind of went digital, and I worked for another company. But I was always it's so funny looking back because it didn't even dawn on me to get back into camera stuff at that point. I was so disconnected from the things I really loved or things that kind of lit me up when I was younger that I didn't even think, because at the digital company, I very easily could have talked to the cam ops and been hey guys, let me film this episode with you, teach me what to do. And I didn't even think about it. but that was kind of how I got back into the world of it. And then when I moved to Tibet was when I really like picked up a camera again. And like everything in Asia, in Tibet, but also just in Asia is so photogenic. So you can literally, you know, anywhere you point your camera, you're going to get like a banger shot. So that really helps to kind of relight it and be like, oh, wow, I do love this. It's so fun.
Why did you move to Tibet?
I don't know.
That's how the best stories start.
Because it was there. No. Yeah. I was living in LA. I was 24 and I was doing absolutely nothing. I was just like, I was drinking all the time. I was really broke and just absolutely had no. When I look back at that time in my life, all I can feel is like how disconnected I was from everything that I loved and like things that lit me up. And I had just gotten this idea that I wanted to go work abroad. So I literally just started talking about it, like at parties, like telling people I was going to do this. And so quickly, I really believe like speaking things in kind of does something. So quickly, I think the first party I was at, some friend of a friend of a friend ended up sending me this job opportunity in Tibet. So I applied for it and I got it. And I moved over there within like a month or two of applying. And it was for this sustainable textile company called Norla Textiles, which they do such incredible. I feel like you guys would all really love them. Ooh. They do such incredible work and they empower communities and everything they do is just so intentional and thoughtful and gorgeous. But yeah, I moved over there to kind of work on social stuff with them and create some photo and video content for them for the year. That's how I ended up there. It was like a village of 200 or 300 people. It was sick.
Wow. Okay, so if you can back up and tell us your connection, what was your connection like with nature and outdoor sports growing up, if you had one, and how did that change when you moved across the world?
Growing up, I was with my dad 2 weekends a month, and my dad was this super outdoorsy guy, just into anything we could afford to do, basically. So camping, kayaking, a little bit of climbing, skiing. Things were like so cheap back then. You know, kids were like free to go skiing.
Those were the days.
So those are the days, dude. Soda Springs. Yeah, basically he just took me out every chance he could get. And at the time as a kid, I just thought obviously that it was fun. But looking at it now, I feel like my dad had a really maybe parents are more like this now, but I think for that generation, it was a bit more unusual. My dad was super hands-off in the fact that he would let me choose where we were going, what we would do, what we would do when we got there. If things went wrong, I was deciding how to get out of it. Like he was really trying to build up this like decision making and problem solving in me, like through using the outdoors as kind of like our playground to do that in. And so from like a very young age, I felt so at home outside. And I think I don't know. I don't like, I have, so you know how you have your like outdoorsy friends and your non-outdoorsy friends? When I look at those two groups of friends, I feel like a lot of the time, one of the biggest distinctions is like, do you feel comfortable with your decision making in the outdoors and like what you're comfortable with, you know, and like knowing yourself, knowing your body, all of those things. And I feel like my dad just injected that into me so young. Like being like 4 years old, he's got stories of me like, I don't know, like he pretending that he didn't know how to ski. And so I had to teach him how to ski, which sounds so silly. But as a kid, you're like, whoa, I'm like so powerful to solve this problem and teach an adult this thing. And I don't know, it just creates a really cool relationship with the outdoors.
So what shifted for you when you moved to Tibet? Did anything change with your relationship to the outdoors?
I mean, in some big ways, yeah, because it brought me back to everything that I had kind of like isolated myself from. You know, I think in your 20s, you do a lot of like healing and like not to be cheesy, but kind of like soul searching and stuff. And I moved there when I was 24. So I think the first couple years of my 20s and like late teens, I was just really, I don't know, just like I wasn't like looking to heal, you know? And so I went there and all of a sudden you're taken away from LA is like such a good place to be distracted, you know, and you just never have to really pay attention to what's going on inside because there's so much to do. And so you go to Tibet and there's like a village of like 200 or 300 people. If you're lucky, there's like 6 people that speak English, and you're just forced to be quiet all the time. Sometimes, I don't know if we can say this, but the Chinese government would like cut the Wi-Fi off for like days at a time because like they'd be having conferences and stuff. So you'd have no Wi-Fi. You have nothing to do but like sit with yourself, and maybe you can like play cards with someone. But there was just so much time to be quiet and kind of, and a lot of times you're outdoors. Obviously you have like an indoor space, but it's so gorgeous there that you're just outside a lot. So it wasn't, when I was in Tibet, it wasn't that I was like actively like climbing things and, you know, doing a lot, but just, I don't know, getting back to the quiet that it can offer you. Really, it feels like if I look back at that time, like really kickstarted my getting me back to the life I want to have.
What was the life you wanted to have?
It's what I'm doing now. I just feel so, I mean, I just wanted to be doing, I mean, I wanted to be doing gnarly outdoor stuff. Is really what I wanted. And I wanted to be filming and shooting and telling stories, and just, it feels dumb sometimes that you can like do that for a job because it's so much fun. It doesn't feel like work, you know, but just like getting the opportunity to like do that for work and in your free time, and have like a lot of your friend circles come from that also, and just being able to kind of like meld all of the things that you love through this one thing, which is just like the activities that you do outside, is exactly what I wanted. Although I probably didn't have the words for it back then. It was more of a feeling I was trying to get towards. Yeah.
Okay. I hear you, because I 99% of the time feel the same way. I want that integration of work, life, hobbies. So sometimes, though, when your work is your life and your hobbies are your work and your friends are your colleagues or people around you, I mean, it can be so hard to disconnect from being in that brain of constantly creating and connecting and working, even if work is fun. So do you experience that? Or what are like the less glamorous sides of your work that people might not notice?
I mean, for sure, sometimes I get sick of my camera. Like, you know, I think every time you go out with your friends, they kind of not like expect you to have your camera, but it's always like fun, you know? And sometimes you're just like, I'm not even going to take a photo on my phone today. Like, I'm not doing anything. To what you're saying about how having it all in one place can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes. There was an element of that on the Adventure Lens Grant trip where you're kind of in between these two worlds of wanting to have the experience and wanting to capture it. And it's sometimes you can do both at the same time, but it's kind of hard, and it probably won't turn out as well visually, like for the footage. So I had to make like all the time, all day, every day, I'm trying to make the decision, like, do I want to be in this conversation and like have this like lovely moment with someone, or do I want to step back and film it and have it like live in the documentary? But then I won't actually have like that memory or the same experience that I would have if I wasn't trying to film it. And I don't have a good answer for that. I just guess it does happen.
Oh, darn.
And like, I mean, I think for sure it depends what like the situation is, you know? And I think sometimes it's easier to balance if you have like a crew that you're working with, or there's like multiple shooters, or how long you're going to be doing the thing or whatever. But yeah, I don't have that answer. And I thought about it and looked for it a lot on that trip. So if anyone does have the answer, I would love to know.
Yeah, please contact us.
Yeah.
Quick note here. If you are listening to this and thinking, I want to be a part of this community, I want to support other women getting outside and telling their stories, we have got plenty for you, too. At the Cairn Project, we support a community of women turning their adventures into storytelling and grassroots fundraisers that support outdoor scholarships. We have some incredible opportunities coming up very soon, including an opportunity to run your first trail ultramarathon in 2026. You do not want to miss this news, so go now to the show notes and make sure that you are subscribed to See Her Outside, you're following at The Cairn Project on Instagram, and you're on our email list since that is the best place to learn about opportunities. Going back to Britt, I asked her how she made decisions towards such an adventure-centered lifestyle.
I was never very attached to things or future, if that makes sense. I was like, and this kind of goes back, I don't know, we're probably not going to get into it, but like I was in foster care and I moved around a lot. So I didn't have a lot of the typical things. A bunch of people don't grow up feeling safe in their home, but like I also grew up not feeling safe in the home. And so I think I didn't have anything that really like rooted me into a place or a space or a plan, because like my plans and my space changed all the time, constantly. So then when I got a little bit older and you have the autonomy to make decisions about your own like career path or whatever, which is not what I was thinking at all, I basically just had zero attachment to anything. First of all, I didn't even make long-term plans. But if I had some semblance of an idea and it was going to pivot, I didn't think twice about it. And I think, and it was, some of it's super irresponsible. Like I have stories about being like stranded in Bangkok for like multiple days with like zero money, like people banging on my like hostel door to like pay them and stuff. So like for sure, like you don't always end up in like the most ideal spot. But I think the idea of making decisions from the gut and without the noise of like, it doesn't look like it fits into my plan or it doesn't feel like something I thought was going to happen. I think there's like a lot of power in that. It's kind of, I think, what they teach when they talk about like playing cards or like betting and stuff. And it's like, don't play emotionally. And I think if you have all of these ideas and plans of like, oh, I'm not going to feel comfortable or it's going to disrupt what anything looks like or whatever, you start to think about it very emotionally. Whereas I was just kind of like, almost like when you're outdoors and you have to make those split-second decisions and then you have to live with it, is essentially how I just made choices throughout my entire life. So again, shout out to my dad, because like, and then things just kind of work out. You just kind of end up like flowing into the places that you want to be, I guess, you know? Not that, you have a ton of help along the way, but it's kind of how it all worked out.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the gut, because I think when I was college age, I was making my decisions more in that emotional state, like from the heart, I guess, of, well, I'm doing this for like this person or this mission. And that meant that I neglected maybe like the logical sides and the intuition sides. And then as I got later into my 20s, I was definitely making my decisions more based on my head. And so like what makes logical sense here, practical sense here. And only now in my like, I guess mid 30s am I getting more into that gut decision making space where I just have enough, I don't know, experiences or like nudges from the world to feel it instead of like thinking it or being like emotional about it. I'm able to more just know in my intuition whether it's a good decision or not.
Do you notice too, the more that you exercise that muscle, that it is easier to kind of like trust and fall into?
Got the truth, yep. And I think often traveling is such a great way to flex that muscle because so much is unexpected, different culture, different language. You have to rely on your intuition just to get by. And that can be the catalyst for getting that deeper connection to your gut, in my opinion.
I agree. No, I think that is such a great stage to kind of like work out that stuff for people who like want to get in touch with it more. I think traveling is such a great way to do it.
Where did you first hear about the Adventure Lens Grant or the Summit Scholarship Foundation? What were your first touch points?
The first time I heard was specifically the Adventure Lens Grant, and Savannah Cummins had posted it on who mentored the program, had posted it on her stories, but I only saw it. I'm assuming she posted about it more than once. I saw it 3 days before the deadline closed. So I like saw it. I immediately kind of like bookmarked it maybe that day that I was like going to apply. And then I worked on it for a couple of days and then I submitted it on the last day, the deadline.
Finding out that you got the scholarship or the grant, what was that like? So when you found out that you were the recipient, this was the very first time, I believe, that they offered the Adventure Lens Grant, right?
Yeah, this is the first one. I actually have never asked Sunny or Shay, but I should, who called me, because I feel so bad and I want to apologize to this person. I got a call and I just remember and I wasn't going to answer because I was getting a lot of spam calls at the time. And then for some reason I answered, and they called me Britt, which like a spam person wouldn't do. But I was so confused because also people, even other people don't usually call me Britt, like if saying like, is she there, you know? And so I was kind of rude. They're like, is Britt there? And I was like, yeah. So rude. And she started explaining that she was calling from the Summit Scholarship. And in my head, the only thing I remember thinking is, are they calling everyone that did not get it? Like, why are they calling me? And so I kind of was like, I was not engaged in the conversation, because then all of a sudden, you know, she's like, you got it. And I was just very, very speechless on the phone. And I really do need to apologize to this person because she was so sweet. And that was kind of it for the phone call. But then I like ran upstairs. My husband was in the bedroom, and I like screamed when I got to the top of the stairs. I was like, I got the grant. And he comes out, and I'm like crying and like laughing. And we like hugged and sat on the stairs for a little while, and I cried a lot.
Yeah, it clearly meant something to you. Can you share why this grant? Why did you apply? What were you hoping to get?
I don't know if I love this answer for myself, but I'll give it. That it really felt like, I guess I just don't like it because needing external validation feels rough to admit. But it felt really validating that like this thing that you love to do is meant for you. And here is this, you know, this gift, this opportunity from like the universe and from all of these incredible women who have put this together, who believe in you essentially. It just feels like, oh, thank God I'm not like wasting my time. I'm not like putting all my eggs into one basket, hoping that it's this, just to, you know, not get where you want to go, essentially. So yeah, that answer feels a little vain, and I wish it was probably something better, but it meant the world to me just to feel believed in, I guess, and seen, and just given an opportunity like that, that's like literally once in a lifetime, is so wild and cool.
First of all, I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because I thrive with external validation, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, you look at any business school program is going to talk about the need to validate your offer before you start trying to sell it. Like, validation is not a bad thing, and I think that we get it confused with maybe stop not listening to our gut anymore, and instead just listening to other people's logic or decision making,
like what they want you to be or whatever.
Yeah, totally. But for me, I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful parts of our Trailblazer program at the Cairn Project is like by turning your adventure into something greater, by turning it into a grassroots fundraiser that can then go on to fund Summit scholarships. Like, that is very validating, because it's showing that what you're doing can make a difference, even though you're just doing what you love. It's connecting with other people who feel the same way. It's for some of them, for some of our Trailblazers, they end up hosting events at, say, climbing gyms, or they'll connect with brands. Like, it's all very validating, so but cool. I don't think it's in some weird vain way. I think it's in a way of showing that what you're doing matters and that people want to stand behind it.
I know, that's really cool. That's a better perspective. And also, if someone else said that, I would never be like, you're so vain.
Totally. You know? I know, we're our own harshest critics. It's true.
But no, I think it is this like really beautiful moment to celebrate like people supporting people. And I guess it just feels kind of weird to be on the receiving end of. You know, you're always like so down to like help, and you want to like lift other people up. But then when it's like your turn to be lifted up, you're like, oh shit, do I deserve to be here? Is this okay? Is this weird? I don't know.
You know, even with this podcast, right? When somebody is being highlighted and we're sharing their story, I've seen a lot of people in front of a camera or in front of a microphone feel very much like, oh, don't make this about me.
Everybody clams up. Yes. I mean, for sure you have like a ham here and there, and that's always really fun. Yes, I love it.
Going back to like being kids, filming our own skits on our camcorders, like, yeah, I was the ham.
Yes. Yes.
We'd make a good team.
Did you have been my star actor?
Yes, that sounds great.
Yeah, no, for sure. People clam up all the time because it feels so awkward. Almost like the whole like writing about yourself in third person thing. And I think too, like, I think there's this idea when you don't share your story a lot, and I do talk to people about this a lot when we're getting ready to film them, that it feels like you have to get it so right in this moment, and it has to be so concise, and it has to be exactly like how you want to be perceived by the world. And that is really difficult for people to, that's a lot to take on in like a 20-minute interview or whatever time you have with them.
And then there's also like, you know, that symbol of when you're behind the camera, it's almost like you get to like hide behind the camera. But then you also have that responsibility of like, it is your job to be sharing these other people's stories. So it's hard on both ends.
It is. I mean, I always feel definitely worse for the person in front of the camera. I'm like, dang. Yeah. That's hard. I get it.
Well, actually, yeah, good segue. Can you describe in your own words the Adventure Lens Grant and what did you expect from the experience before you went out? And then can you share the story of the whole trip?
So the Adventure Lens Grant recipient was basically going to go with the Summit Scholarship expedition in Peru and film a group of women and non-binary folks trying to summit two peaks in the Peruvian Andes, which were Ishinca and Tocllaraju. Ishinca is rated easy on the like mountaineering alpinism scale, and then Tocllaraju is rated hard, I believe. But yeah, so it's a really cool objective, especially for the recipients of the different grants. We all came from really different backgrounds. Like some of us had some mountaineering experience, some of us had none. And to be looking at Tocllaraju as like one of your first objectives ever is so wild. You feel like such a badass, like walking up through the valley being like, I'm going to climb that. That is so cool. That's what the trip is doing. And of course, along the way, they're teaching you all kinds of different mountaineering skills. They're teaching you how to ice climb. They're teaching you about logistics of how to plan a trip like this. And something they say, which is really cool, is basically like, this, you should not be doing this trip multiple times with a guide. Like the whole idea is to empower you enough. Maybe you do it once or twice even to kind of get your footing, and maybe you do one of the different trips that they offer, you know, but like the whole point is so that you can do it on your own, which I think is so cool and badass. Like they're not trying to handhold you the whole way, you know? So I found out I was going, you prep for a couple of months, you do different calls to kind of figure out like your layering system and your gear and different things like that. And then specifically for the Adventure Lens Grant, it came with a mentorship program, which to me was honestly, I mean, the whole thing was this like huge, beautiful opportunity. But the mentorship was especially meaningful to me because I'd followed Sab's work for years, I think for like 5 years. And she's just someone I deeply admire and look up to, and her work is so insane and so cool. So the program offered a mentorship with her as well. So her and I had several calls leading up to the trip, and she kind of helped me figure out what to expect in terms of, this was actually so helpful. At first I was like, oh man, but basically she was like, don't really expect to film anything. Which helped because I'm thinking I'm going to walk out of here with some like wild, like 40-minute documentary, you know? And she was basically like, it'll be really tough because you're learning at the same time. Like the whole point of the grant is for you to learn, not so kind of shifting focus from the outcome or the final product to just learning about yourself in that space and how to work in those kind of conditions and stuff like that. And that was, so I guess that was an expectation I had. And that was something that really stuck with me and helped a lot on the trip, because there were so many times once I was there where I was like, I'm not getting enough. I'm too tired. I'm too cold or whatever. And you kind of fall into this headspace of like, wow, you suck. Like, should it even have been you that is like on this trip? But remembering her say that helped a lot. And she also had like an anecdote about her first trip and like not getting that much. So I was like, okay, I feel a little better.
What were the differences in, I mean, I'm assuming this was like your first expedition style video project, because were you working mostly with tech clients before that for as far as filmmaking?
I'm working in tech now. I had done a lot of different types of production. I'd worked in travel, lifestyle, food, beauty. I was trying to move into storytelling in the mountains specifically because I'd started rock climbing in 2020 and really, really fell in love with it. So I was trying to get like combine everything, which was what the desire to apply for this grant specifically came from. So basically, I have a background in camera and film and production. And then I have no mountaineering experience. I have like a couple years of rock climbing, most of that in the gym, and then I have like a little bit of backpacking experience, and mainly all of my experience in the mountains just comes from either being with my dad or being like a broke 20 something, like traveling around, but not any like high level production or scale type of mountaineering.
Right. So then between the mentorship and the trip itself, I mean, you're just getting bombarded with, here's how I shoot in the wind and the noise. And I mean, what are the differences? What skills did you learn through the experience?
Oh my gosh. I learned, I think my biggest takeaway is that, this is such a bummer because it's like, I wish I had learned a hack for it versus just learning that this is the truth, is that you should always be shooting. Like the best way to get what you need is because those moments are going to happen and you just don't know when, and you cannot manufacture them, especially if you're doing documentary work and like no one is a trained actor. No one can like redo a moment, basically. It would be so difficult. They can like walk past the camera twice, you know what I mean? But like they can't do any of like the really like heartwarming stuff more than once. So you really do just have to be constantly shooting. And for me, something I learned for sure is that like I should have trained more physically. Like I think I followed a plan that felt in line with like someone on the trip. But if you're going to shoot the trip, you need a huge extra reserve of like energy and mental space to also be able to capture it, because you want to be ahead of your subject. You want to be over here when everyone is on a rest day. You want to be doing your shot list and like getting interviews prepped and like doing all these things that you just need extra physical and mental energy for.
While you were there, remind me how long you were out there for and how many people were in the group. But did you have a vision for the story that you were trying to capture, or does that come after the trip, after you collect all those moments?
I did have a vision and we did not execute that vision. We totally pivoted, which I think is probably the way to do it, at least for me. I think it's cool to have an idea of what you want to get, but then the nature of documentary work is that you have to like kind of go with what unfolds. So we ended up pivoting once, like in the field, and then another time in the edit. 'Cause then also in post, you're just kind of working with what you have. So the whole trip was like 2 weeks. I think we were in the mountain range for maybe 10 days, because you do some acclimatizing stuff like from town for the first couple days. On the trip, we had 2 other Summit Scholarship recipients. We had 2, I guess, like paid guests. And then you have Shay, who is our American guide / is the Awe Expeditions operations manager now. And then we had 2 Peruvian guides. And then you kind of have a host of people that help you too. You have porters, you have like an amazing cook. And yeah, you have your Sherpas, and you just have like this whole team of support, which is so sick.
So how did the physical side of the adventure go? It sounds like that had some pivots too.
It was actually like, I guess physically it wasn't so bad. I was tired and I definitely wasn't getting some of the shots that I wanted to get, but I was really cold. I didn't do enough cold training, and I don't think I brought enough gear with me. Like I should have had a bigger jacket essentially, because I was so cold the whole time. I'm a cold person anyway. So that was, and I didn't realize too, something that I thought I knew about but had no idea about is also like long-term exposure to things. Like I had gone out and shot stuff for different projects where maybe you have like a really long, hard day. Maybe it's like a 15-hour day or something. But like you come home, you take a hot shower, you're like in your warm bed. But like if you're camping for like 10 days trying to do all this and you're just consistently cold and things like that, how much that can take a toll like exponentially as it gets longer, So I think just getting like ready for something like that and just kind of like having that in your head will help, because I hadn't thought about that at all.
Yeah. So there were 2 planned summits, and what ended up happening?
So the first summit, the whole team got, yay, Ishinca, so cool. And that was really sick. And you get back down to base camp after summiting Ishinca, and everybody's like, okay, that was incredible. Like, we've all come here to do, like, we've all done what we've come here to do. And which is very like sweet of them. But like in the back of everybody's head, you're like, no, we're all going for Tocllaraju. Even though they're like, this is just icing. Like nobody even has to do it. It doesn't matter. But everybody's like, no, we're doing it. This is what matters. So we got up to high camp and I had been pooping myself all the way up to high camp. I was like,
I've been there
in the bushes. Yeah. I was like, oh no, this is so unideal. And you wake up so you go to bed like pretty early. You wake up at 1 a.m. and it's fucking freezing. You're like, oh my God. And I felt so unwell. And I was just like, I'm so cold. I didn't eat dinner the night before because I was afraid. I didn't want to be like shitting myself up the mountain. So I was like, I'm going to not eat and hopefully that and just basically eat Pepto-Bismol tabs all night. And like, hopefully that pays off. But yeah, the next morning when we left, I just felt like cold and weak. And I was like, oh no. So we were on separate rope teams and it's so epic. Like, I feel like before a trip like this, you watch documentaries and different pieces of these sorts of trips. And what I realized is like, there is no way on film to capture how cold someone really is, or like how cold an atmosphere is, or how cold the wind is. Like, it's so cold, but it gave me a lot of appreciation for everything else I'd ever watched in the mountains. So yeah, basically we're in different rope teams. And to make a long story short, I turned around after like 4 hours, I think. Me and one other teammate were just cooked. And we swapped rope teams so that we didn't pull anybody back with us. And of course, initially you're like, I fucking suck. This is awful. You're like crying. Your snot is freezing to your face. So you just feel like a loser. You're just like, this is ridiculous. And then, the trip is done and whatever. And I think failure comes with a lot of like very cool takeaways where what it taught me is that like, I thought I was comfortable with failing, but not nearly as comfortable as I would like to be. And I think a lot of that is something that you can only get from bigger objectives or long-term projects, because I thought, I'm a sport climber, I fail all the time, but it's like, well, if you don't send a route and it's a 10-minute approach and it's 20 minutes from your house, there's effort, but it's like effort you can go back and give again very easily. Whereas like, if I don't summit Tocllaraju, will I ever come back and try this again? So there's this whole layer of it. And it was cool. It was like a very cool portal into myself and being like, oh, you do need to get more comfortable in this space and basically like not hate yourself for not being able to do something yet.
Totally. There's the parallel, I guess, of you can always reshoot a 10-second Instagram reel, but you can't reshoot a full-length documentary, right?
Yeah. Like it's having all that prep work that goes into it and all the time to get somewhere and all the effort and the months of training and preparation, all these things. And then, to turn around, you're just like, oh, that's awful. But I am really, really, obviously it would have been cooler to summit for sure. But I am really grateful for I think, learning that lesson in what is hopefully early on in my mountaineering career.
And you still walked away. I mean, now it's many months later. You have this beautiful film. It's about 6 minutes? 6 minutes. 6.5 minutes.
6 minutes and 28 seconds to be exact.
And Vamos a la Playa. Can you explain why you titled it that way?
Yeah, I wish this is one of those things where I wish I would have shot it and I never caught it at the right time. But one of our guides, Alfie, whenever we had to do something that was going to be like really cold or really difficult or both, he'd be like, "All right, girls, vamos a la playa." And it was just like such a cute little like laugh and kind of joke that he had throughout the
I
trip.
love it. What if you had to just verbally share, like say one sentence, what story are you sharing through Vamos a la Playa?
I think what I'm trying to share is the emotional side of an expedition. With that would be my one-liner. And basically in part because I just didn't have enough footage and enough of a storyline to like give like a full overall kind of like physical depiction of like what was going on. But I do think what you keep with you is the emotional part of it. You know, it's the relationships you weren't expecting to make. It's the learning things about yourself that you did not have on your bingo card, whatever, you know, like it's all that stuff. And I think we all went through so many waves of emotions of like just gratitude that like it was this group of people that was all together, felt so special, and like all the support that you got and all like these wonderful warm feelings that you get in a very cold, you know, foreign new place. It was a really cool juxtaposition, so I hope that's what comes through.
I think it does. I watched it twice the first time. I watched it 2 times in a row because I didn't get enough time to see the beautiful mountain shots.
Thank you.
How do you think that the opportunity to experience the Adventure Lens grant and the trip and the mentorship and I mean meeting all these amazing people and guides, like will that open up anything for you career-wise in the future?
I hope so. I hope so. I think it's such a niche category that you have to there's just so much work that goes into it. Like for sure, I can't just do something like this and then be like, oh, I'm ready to take on like a big outdoor project. I would love for it to be that way, but I think that the reality of it is that it's a really really strong kickoff point. But then you still have to, I think there's many steps probably in between that and doing this like full time. But they're cool steps. You're like learning stuff along the way. They're like very useful stages, you know, to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's such a cool program.
You've found yourself in a career that I think is a very long game. And I think with a lot of creative work, you never feel like you finally get quote unquote there. There's always more to learn, right?
Sure. No, 100%. It's a very humbling field, I think.
Well, do you have advice for if somebody's listening and they love the idea of getting into any type of visual journalism or filmmaking of any kind? I mean, where do they start if they're in their 20s or 30s now, maybe don't have the experience of being 8 years old and like knowing that there's something there? I mean, where do you go?
I think there's probably sometimes a wall between what you are currently doing and what you think you're good enough to do, like quote unquote good enough. And because you don't have the budget or the experience or the gear or whatever. But I'd say if I had advice, it would just be to try to do the bigger things because it's so much better to do it and not get to exactly where you're going, but fall somewhere like within that range versus not doing it at all. And I think that's pretty typical advice, you know, but I really have learned the most when I bite off more than I can chew, basically.
I resonate with that. And what about, do you have any tips for people who might want to apply for an Adventure Lens grant or any other type of program through the Summit Scholarship Foundation in the future? How can they make their, I mean, obviously your application stood out because you won. Maybe you don't know why, but if you had to guess, what are some things people could do to up their chances?
Specifically for the Lens grant, I was one of the applicants that looked like they had a decent amount of both types of experience. So filmmaking and for me, it was rock climbing, but outdoor experience, you know, because I think sometimes there's people that are shooters, but they just have no real exposure or time outside. Or you have people that are like super invested into their outdoor sports and activities, but have have a very entry level of film and photography. So I think, again, just trying to do more than you think that you're able to do and trying to boost up both of those things that's what gets you to where you want to go, is just trying to do the stuff that you don't think you can do.
Yeah. I'm glad you say that, because it's just another plug for becoming a trailblazer with the Karen Project, because it gives you a platform when you turn your adventure into something more public, or that you can create resources from and inspire other people to take part in that story. I think it gives you an outlet and a platform to make it bigger and show, like, I care about this beyond just the sport. I care about this beyond just the physical experience. I care about this because of the long-term impact it has on other girls and women.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's honestly, it kind of all boils down to being like vulnerable, right? And just being like, I'm going to shoot my shot for this thing. But then, like you're saying, you see all of these like incredible echoes around it and all this support that you receive. And then I think that kind of gives you this mental shift. And if you start looking at yourself the way that other people start looking at you, I think that's kind of like how your work gets elevated sometimes too. Obviously, I would just really like to close with gratitude, because it was such an incredible trip and really once in a lifetime. And the support given on that trip is not something I take lightly or think, is given all the time. I just feel very, very grateful for everybody involved in this, because I know it takes a village, and it was such a special thing that's going to stay with me forever. And I think I feel very confident that every recipient of these grants feels the same way. Like, it is just such a once in a lifetime gift that is going to echo throughout your life in all these like cool ways. And it's just the most special thing ever. So
big thanks to Britt for modeling that vulnerability and passion in our conversation today. Make sure you go to the show notes to watch Vamos a la Playa, the short film that she created through the Adventure Lens grant. Applications for 2026 Summit Scholarships open in just a few days from this episode airing, so start thinking about your own story that you'd like to share in your application. And there are so many other ways to get involved with our work at the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure. We have the Karen Project, where you turn your adventure into a force for good that supports these Summit Scholarships. We have Gritlit, an adventure book club subscription. We have Trail Talks, monthly virtual learning opportunities that are free to you. And of course, we have the See Her Outside podcast. And a 5-star rating and review from you will help keep us creating episodes that inspire women and girls to share their own voices and adventures with others. See Her Outside is brought to you by the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure, hosted by me, Angie Lake, and edited by Allison Castingway. Make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button now so that you don't miss any future episodes. They come out every other Thursday. We'd love for you to stay in touch and send any feedback you have to Angie@KarenProject.org so that we can team up in our mission to close the gender gap and work towards a more inclusive outdoors. Until next time, go get outside.